Hey, everybody, guess what? It is Wednesday. It is time for the Witches Movie Coven. So grab your goat, grab your dragon of any size, because we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons tonight. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts, and let me introduce you to the other hosts. We have the fabulous Jason Mankey right here. Why don't you say hi, Jason, and pass it down.
Hi, I'm Jason. There you go. Same as last week. I'm still Jason.
Richard-Lael.
That would be me. I am Richard-Lael. I am also Richard-Lael is a double name. I'm not Richard. If I were just Richard, I would be as it was last and the week before that.
And it shall always be.
But I'm short. And Miss Courtney.
That's me still, same as last week too. I'm here again. I'm Courtney Buckley. I am Ghostbait on Scared and Alone, and so excited to finally talk about a movie that wasn't made in the 70s.
And we can say whatever we want because Heather's not here tonight.
And I was going to say, if you think Heather looks a little different today, Heather, we wish you well. She is home with the COVID, home with the bug. We send you so much love. But in her place, we have the fabulous Rodney Orpheus. So say hi to everybody. Rodney, who are you? Tell us.
Hey, I'm Rodney. And this is my first time on the show. So I'm very happy to be here. Oh, and yes, as Jason is showing you, I wrote a bunch of books, including Grimoire of Aleister Crowley. So
thank you so much.
And I play a lot of D&D.
Your voice is the most magical thing on the show right now. I just need you to know that.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we can just have him talk all the time.
Just that's it. I have nothing to say.
Just putting my mic.
Yes, see, we even in our chat room. Hi, everybody in the chat room. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Alicia. Hi, everybody. Kelvin, thank you for been posting it, and everybody else. Oh, I hear from the heavens, Jack Parsons. The word Jack Parsons. If we have a connection there.
Well, I think I should start because we mentioned it last week, or I don't remember. Jason was there. I don't remember, but it was some time ago. So there was a connection with a film that we watched about. Oh, it was my birthday show, and it was when we did the Good Omens. And which was, of course, instead of The Omen, which was too much for us to handle on New Year's Eve. So I brought up that Jack Parsons was friends with Aleister Crowley, and that Jack Parsons, who was my neighbor, some 50 years prior to in Pasadena, had decided that he was going to he had this friend that he had met. It was L. Ron Hubbard, but he had this friend, and that he was writing back and forth to Aleister Crowley saying, "Oh, I've met this friend, and he's now sleeping in the room with my wife, and I think it's a great idea." And went on and on and on until it turns out that, of course, L. Ron Hubbard took the money that he was going to invest in the yachts and then did it himself, and so poor Jack Parsons didn't. And they were trying to summon the Antichrist is what it was. And from my understanding, Crowley had told him it was a very bad idea. And that was my knowledge of it.
Okay. Well, okay. I have a slightly closer connection because I dated Jack Parsons' widow.
Wow.
A long time ago when I was very young, and she was very old. And I was hooked up with her by a mutual friend, and went and spent a beautiful day with her, and took her to the movies to see Stargate at Chinese Theater in Hollywood Boulevard. And yeah, so I knew Marjorie Cameron Parsons very well, and she was a wonderful human being, one of the most divine people I've ever met in my life, goddess walking amongst men. Fabulous person. So yeah, and I got the whole Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard story from the horse's mouth because she was actually there. I asked her about that, and she was like, "Ron," she was from Nebraska, so she had a really strong Nebraskan accent. "Ron, let me tell you about Ron. Ron was an asshole, but he was a smart asshole. So yeah, she was
Great.
roommates with Ron.
So if there is a bunch of Scientologists protesting outside Rodney's house tomorrow, it's all because of the show. We apologize in advance.
Hey, not my opinion, the opinion of someone who actually knew him. So hey, go
They'll
figure.
be protesting at her grave.
Don't shoot the messenger. Anyway, I do not know how to gracefully transfer that into the talk of Dungeons and Dragons, but we're going to try. Dungeons and Dragons, it's a world. But if anybody did not see that movie, back to Richard-Lael, do you have an unbiased synopsis of the film?
I do have an unbiased synopsis. Of course, I am told that it is not Zac Efron, but it is Chris Pine. I don't know who these people are. I don't know who these people are. But I thought he was attractive, and apparently he is the most attractive of the Pines or the Chris's. I don't know, but I liked him. Anyway, back to the unbiased plot summary. So a bunch of nerds are attending a Renaissance festival pretending to be wizards. The end. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. It's actually a really good. I'm going to save my opinions. It's a story about a man who is he lives to be helpful. I don't remember what he's called or what his position is, but he lives to help people, and he gets greedy. They bring in a red wizard. The red wizard has, of course, they mark their territory like cats, and they mark their territories. And so it ends up that this red wizard kills his wife. And so he goes on this quest to find this thing that's supposed to bring her back. And while he's there, he gets caught in a time bubble thing. And so he's sentenced to prison. And then he and his friend who helped raise the daughter end up by breaking out. And so along the way, you find out that these red wizards they have mind control over the world, and these people are able to be brain dead. Like all the people who are supporting of the red wizards, no judgment there. They are all brain dead. People who wear red hats get to be brain dead. That's all I know. I'm not going to say anything political. I'm just saying the people who wear the red hats are brain dead. And then,
Bravo, sir. Bravo, sir. Bravo.
They go on this quest. Bad wizard, taking over the world, and they defeat them. The friend dies by a red wizard, and then there's nothing you could do. This is very simplified because it's a lot. It's very complex. Anyway, red wizard saves. They use this time to bring her back at the end, as opposed to the mother, because he realizes the father and the daughter. He says, he realized that the daughter never knew the mother, and it can only work once. And so he said, I understand. I see that you need her. And so they bring her back. And there's a corrupt politician who was somehow connected with them, who was one of the band of thieves. Hugh Grant, not Jackman, like my mind went. Hugh Grant, and something about he was a corrupt politician who stole all of these things, and then he ended up by sort of being broke and then wandering through the desert and then being punished by. It's very simplified. There's a lot going on. I don't know. I'm back to you.
Clear. I got it now. Thank you.
Were we watching the same movie?
We oftentimes don't. That's the thing that happens here.
Okay. We don't usually. We would turn things over to Heather right now for like the academic or anything that was in her book or not in her book. But Rodney Orpheus, do you see a different film you want to tell us about?
It's Dungeons and Dragons. A bunch of no-hopers go on an adventure, make huge mistakes about everything, make terrible decisions, defeat a bunch of crazy monsters by accident half the time, and everyone has an awesome time. That's what D&D is about.
That is exactly it. That is, it took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh yeah, that was definitely what you said, Richard-Lael, for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say this: the former evangelical Pentecostal in me felt slightly dirty and guilty for watching Dungeons and Dragons, because what you may or may not know is that I grew up as a Pentecostal and during the time of the Satanic Panic, and Dungeons and Dragons was blamed on every homicide, every foul thing that had happened was Dungeons and Dragons and the devil. It teaches you to be wizards. And so
there are a few things scarier than a basement full of nerds throwing dice. I mean, that really is the epitome of kids who are going to cause trouble and are going to go out and ritually sacrifice others. The hysteria...
Hey, it worked for me.
I mean, the hysteria over Dungeons and Dragons was always one of the dumbest things, perhaps, in the whole part of the Satanic Panic. And
just because
I will never forgive those jerks, because the greatest cartoon of the 80s was the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, which they got yanked off the air, even though it was the highest rated Saturday morning cartoon show by a wide margin. They got all the advertisers to leave. And so it is very telling that all of these years later, Hollywood is throwing up a giant tentpole Dungeons and Dragons movie, after in the 80s it was something that was vilified for no particular reason.
Wow.
Well, I think it was vilified for very good reasons, because a couple of very good reasons. One, because it taught kids to use their imagination, and Christians don't like that. And number two, it taught them that they were, they could go out and meet demons and conquer them and do cool shit, and they didn't have to be scared. And because Christianity is based on fear, it's based on fearing God, and that without God and without Jesus, you're nothing. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons said, you can be a 14-year-old nerd sitting in your mom's basement, but you can still go out and rule the world. So I think they had very good reasons for hating Dungeons and Dragons. And as you mentioned, the fact that the movie is out now just shows that all those 14-year-old nerds back then are now the guys making movies now. Like Stephen Colbert's famous D&D player. There's loads of movie stars. There's one of the leading politicians in the UK is an ex-Dungeons and Dragons player, Michael Gove. Big Dungeons and Dragons player. He's in the cabinet in the UK. So he's an ass as well. But anyway, but I think, the Christians recognized that this was another path to a liberation in thought, because people could become more than they started out with. You could be whoever you wanted to be. You could call yourself a different name. You could do different things, have a different personality, be a different gender, anything you wanted. That's what makes role-playing games so exciting. And that's what makes them so scary to the controllers.
And I will say that sort of has spilled over into online games like Second Life, where someone can pretend to be a nun, or they can pretend to be a fighter pilot, and it's all pretend, and they can be whoever they want to be in their little world. It's kind of a curious way that technology has sort of taken that Dungeons and Dragons idea and sort of brought it more into a more reclusive space, I guess. I kind of miss the fact, though, that in from my understanding, in D&D, costuming is a major thing in it, that you would actually sometimes dress up.
Good.
Do you dress up, Jason? I don't know.
When I have done role-playing games, I've never dressed up. But I will say that what I like about a good role-playing game is that it is much more immersive than playing a video game, because you are controlling what the character says. Mm-hmm. You are controlling what the character does. And if you have a good person running the game, you do get lost in it, and you can jump in and you can be this person that is not you. I was never a big D&D player, but I did play like some of the superhero versions that were sort of spin-offs of D&D, and I'd always wanted to be a 14-year-old superhero, and here I was. Now I was a 14-year-old superhero, even though I was a 32-year-old man, and it was so much fun.
So I just recently started. Well, I haven't played yet, but it's been something I've wanted to get into for years. I thought it'd be awesome because I lived my whole life in Imagination Land, and this would be great. But then my son expressed interest in it, and his school has a D&D club, so he meets every week, and he meets up with his friends, and they taught him how to play, and they teach him how to DM, and they just play every week. So he brought that home and got some friends of mine excited and decided that he wants to run his own D&D campaign. So step one, I was told, was I had to make a character. So I made a character. I've done nothing with it yet, but I've made a character. And then all of a sudden he was talking about, oh, get ready because I'm going to set this trap for you and I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to have this monster. And I got so viscerally protective of this character that is fictional that I made that I was like, don't you dare. I like my own kid. I will not play with you if you kill off my character. Like she has not even breathed life yet. Like you can't do that to her. Like, and I was like, we can't talk about this anymore. So I can only imagine, like I've watched videos online of people playing and stuff and how emotional it gets because of how deeply entrenched you are in it. And I think having watched this movie without knowing anything about Dungeons and Dragons other than what I saw in Stranger Things, but you know, and like the general concept of it, it was the same way. Like it just sucked you right into their lives and their adventure and made you want to go on a quest. And as we all know, I love a great quest, but like it was that like I got sucked in so hard and I was immediately like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like I could do that. So I made my little character and we're going to see how it goes. And if my son kills her, he's going to be grounded for the rest of his life. I made the mistake of, so you guys know I have impulse control issues and I can't go 1 week without buying something off Mystery Control. Well, I got it into my head that I needed all of the equipment for Dungeons and Dragons. So I went to every hobby and game store within an hour radius of my house and I spent all of my money. And why, for my first D&D game, do I need $100 obsidian dice? Well, because I rolled a D20 when I rolled it. I rolled a 20 on the D20 when I rolled it, and that was magic, and I needed it. And then I needed all the other stuff, and that wasn't quite enough dice. I needed dice with eyeballs in it. Like I kept going, and then my son asked for one thing, and I didn't understand the repercussions, and he said, "This is the coolest thing, and I need to have it." And it was like $6, but it was a 120-sided dice. So I got it for him, and then we get in the car, and he's like, "You have no idea what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to roll this, and this is how much damage you're going to get." And I was like, "I will bring it back to the store. Don't you do that to my character." But already, like, and we're not even, we haven't even played yet, and I'm already invested. So I think that it's stupid that this was something that was ruined before, and I think everybody should play. Because it doesn't matter how old you are. You can always play pretend.
And you should always play pretend.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and Dungeons and Dragons too was more than just the role-playing game. Even if you didn't play the game, you might have read the books at some point. I mean, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which was one of the first D&D books, really was kind of a template for a lot of epic fantasy that came out later. Not that I think Dragons of Autumn Twilight is particularly good, but it was a big book in the early 80s, and I knew lots of people who read those who had no interest in the game at all. I mean, it's a cultural phenomenon in so many different ways.
I don't really have any experience playing the game because I never got into it. Like I said, I was raised earlier on. I thought it was evil. And then by the time that it came out, like that I was out of that belief, I felt I was a little too old. The only experience that I had playing the game was years ago when I lived in San Francisco, and I was in a play where a character played Dungeons and Dragons, and so I did the costuming. So I was sort of like Renaissance future dragon slayer. So that's the only experience that I know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. I have no experience.
I've been playing D&D and other role-playing games for 40 years. And written role-playing games as well. So, and it's been a major part of my nerdyism for a very long time.
As someone really involved in the D&D world, Rodney, how was this movie received by people in the D&D community? Did they like it?
I mean, if you're a D&D player, if you're a D&D fan or into role-playing games, this movie was fantastic. I mean, I think it's a great fantasy movie anyway. I enjoyed it. I had a blast. But whoever wrote it and put it together, they knew D&D inside out, because if you are a D&D player and know the game well, it's full of little in-jokes and Easter eggs that you're just laughing. I mean, I was rolling around the floor at multiple occasions during it because it's so brilliantly done. And it has all the creatures and the spells, all the classes. It's absolutely 100% right all the way down the line. But more important, like I said at the beginning, it captures the spirit of a great role-playing session, because it is that freewheeling. It just shit just happens, and people are like running around like, "Hey, I've got a great idea," and then everything goes horribly wrong, and you have a great time doing it. And so they really captured the fun and the spirit of a great D&D session. So yeah, I think most all D&D players just loved it. Though I think the movie didn't do that great at the box office, so unfortunately, so
No.
there'll probably not be a sequel, which is a real pity.
That's a shame too, because this was a movie, and I talk about this a lot with different movies, but this was a movie that was like meant to be seen on the big screen. Like, Patty, if you watched it on your phone this week, you missed out, because this was a cinematic adventure in and of itself, and it was like, I'm so glad I went opening night to see it, and I'm so glad I did. I went multiple times actually to the theater to watch it.
I watched it on my iPad.
Bigger screen.
My bigger iPad. Okay, I'm going to speak from a person who has never played Dungeons and Dragons in their life. I'm not a gamer. It just, I don't know why or what. It just never in my whole life. But I really enjoyed the movie. So you can enjoy the movie not knowing the inside jokes, not knowing anything about Dungeons and Dragons. But I still got swept up in the characters and the quest and everything. So it was really fun. And I'm just digging all these funny Hugh Grant. now that he's aged into his character roles, he's just cracking me up.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He makes a great villain. And he just goes for it. He just doesn't give a shit and just chews the scenery all the way through. And he was so fabulous in it. I really liked him a lot in it. It was a revelation.
The whole cast was really good. And as somebody who didn't play a lot of D&D but was really familiar with the game, it got all, as Rodney said, it got all the classes of people and races and like just the big D&D world right. And I saw it on opening day because I was really excited about it. Having Chris Pine helped a lot too. And I was sitting with another friend who, like me, is pretty geeky, and we geeked out the whole movie. And it's just so much fun. Like, they just crammed a lot of fun into this movie. It cost $150 million to make, and it made about $200 million, which is really disappointing because it needed to be seen by more people. This is one of my favorite movies from Hollywood in the last 3 or 4 years. Certainly better than a lot of the more terrible superhero movies that have come out recently.
Yeah.
I agree. I normally like to be a little bit more, a little less charitable if everyone else is going to be so in favor of it. But really, I did enjoy it. I have to admit, I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, but the film itself was incredibly endearing, incredibly moving. I thought that the pacing was great. I enjoyed Hugh Grant as the character villain. I loved him sort of the scheming. He was ostensibly, what is his name? From, it's the old Disney film with, Robin Hood. He was King, not Richard, but the other one.
King John.
John.
Yeah.
Oh,
Prince John.
Prince John.
Prince
Hey,
John is-
mommy. Oh yeah. So he sort of reminded me a little bit of in the comedic sense of Prince John. So he was good. He was very good. Chris Pine was great in Star Trek. It was the first time that Captain Kirk was played by an actor. That was
How dare you?
Oh, wow, that is
Whoa.
not fair.
Oh,
William,
I
William
just happened.
Shatner. How dare you impinge on William Shatner like so? Oh my God, I'm horrified. I'm horrified. Is there a kick button I can press?
All we have is Jason being able to turn off his light, and I really
Oh,
can't turn
God.
off the light for comments. It's not the same as turning it off for Courtney.
or for us. Well, I'm looking like not everybody loved it. Mary Jane said she fell asleep. She didn't love it. And a couple of people said it was boring. Maybe they watched it on their phone.
Maybe they watched a different
They
movie.
needed to watch it on the iPad.
They watched the one that Richard-Lael was talking about in the beginning of the show. That's the one that they watched.
You know, though, it was good. I think it was good. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, but I loved sort of the underdog, as Rodney was saying in the beginning, about a bunch of underdogs who sort of fall upwards. They slay all of these monsters, and how do they do it? By accident, mostly. And then, of course, I love the fact that Chris Pine's character, he sort of is, oh yes, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, and then he says, oh yeah, but I told him back in the tavern that I couldn't do this. Wait, you knew all the time that you couldn't do this? You knew all the time? And then he's like, well, I believe in you.
They're
So,
like the bad news bears of high fantasy.
Can I just really quick? Alicia said I was just excited they all didn't have the same hair in this week's movie, and I would like to agree. Yep. And there was nobody was like dancing around naked. I mean, I like that from last week, but not in this
Boobs
movie.
and butts. Boobs and
Boobs
butts.
and butts. I've
Yeah.
been singing that all week long, Jason.
You know, I should have gone into music, but I didn't. Instead, I went into witchcraft, and here we are.
The
Yeah.
singing witch.
Yeah,
Pretty.
ugh. Nobody wants to hear that.
I did.
All right. I don't know how to start this conversation, but I heard from the heavens, our producer Rob saying something about the items that they used in the movie compared to the things, but I don't know how to have that conversation because I'm not a D&D player.
Just before we hop into that, can I just touch on something that like Richard-Lael was just talking about, like, and you, Patty, too, like going in and saying, well, I didn't have any idea about D&D and I still liked it. And I think that's the beauty of this movie. Like, I also didn't have any idea about D&D and I loved it. And I feel like I wonder if maybe that's why it didn't do as well. Like, people thought that they wouldn't enjoy it or wouldn't get it or whatever it was.
Or maybe they're all secret Pentecostals who think that it's all about the devil.
I mean, it could be that too.
There's still a lot of that on the Bible Belt and all those Islamic countries out there, etc., who do still think that's satanic. I mean, actually, I'll plug my next book, which is coming out later this year, which is actually about the 80s Satanic Panic and the Dungeons and Dragons Satanic Panic.
What?
It's great. It's going to be so good. It's called Delinquent Elementals.
Where do we pre-order this?
MIT Press, baby. I'm like a real author now.
There you go.
So yeah, MIT Press, Delinquent Elementals by Rodney Orpheus and Phil Hine. Plug. Anyway, because back in the 80s, Phil and I, we were very young then. We used to run a magazine called Pagan News, and we covered the whole Satanic Panic as it happened and the whole D&D scandal and everything else. So now we've done a huge compendium of all the articles from then and editorial and stuff. So yeah, I was right in the thick of that whole thing when it was happening, that whole D&D satanic thing. And yeah, really people, I mean, it was horrific. I mean, you know that in the prison system in the US today, Dungeons and Dragons is still banned in the US prison system.
Really?
Because they don't want the prisoners like doing pretend violence. It's fine if they do real violence or something. I don't know. It's bizarre, but yeah, even to this day, it's banned in prisons in the U.S. And it's still like, it's still a big thing that is so anti-Christian, and it's bizarre. But yeah, that's how powerful it is. It's going to have a different cover, hopefully.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
wild though, because I mean, about this seems like such a wholesome movie. I mean, we've seen some that I could see the satanic panic people would get a little upset about, but not this one.
Someone asks, Sam in the comments asks if the pentagram is an evil symbol. It's not. Just to answer, it's not.
No.
Isn't there such thing as an evil symbol? It's just you can make a mark on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the mark isn't evil. The person making it may be, but how can a symbol be evil? I mean,
that's what I always say about Ouija boards. Anytime anyone comes at me about Ouija boards, like I have a serial killer one back here. I can use that. People are scared of that. I could also go outside with a leaf and a rock and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not about a piece of wood. It's about, or a piece of plastic or a piece of cardboard. It's about what you're doing with it.
Yep.
And it's pretty.
It is.
This one is especially. It has serial killers on it.
Patty
was there when I bought it.
We should do a Ouija board comparison. I've got dozens and dozens. We should have a show and tell day. Is there a movie we could do that focuses on a Ouija board?
Ouija board? I don't know if there's witches in it, but there's a Ouija movie.
Is there any witches or witchiness in it, or would it just
Ouija boards?
Ouija board.
That's close enough for me.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Yeah, why not? We'll do the Ouija. Actually, on a side note, I will tell you.
We should, so we will.
I'll tell you about Blumhouse, actually. I worked with them on a show called Elevator. And to go back to Jack Parsons at the beginning, so I did a show called Elevator where I played the serial killer H.H. Holmes. And Patti had come over, and Father Sebastian, we did a seance. We summoned Jack Parsons. He was very weird in the first one. Like I couldn't quite get him. But then later on at my home in Pasadena, we had a seance with a group of people that didn't have any idea. They just wanted the experience. So anybody who wants to come through, let them come through. So I said, okay, let's do it. We put down the board, and I don't touch the board. And I said, who is here? We raise the bell. Who is here? The board spells out JP. And the woman to my right says, JP Morgan? And I said, no, it's Jack Parsons. I know for a fact it's Jack Parsons. He's been here before. Hello, Jack. I welcome you. And I said, Jack, tell us something so that we know that it's you. And the board spells out CRJ9K. And I went, I have no idea what that means. And the fellow across the way says, couldn't that be like a jet propulsion engine or something like CRJ 9000? Maybe. I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't know. I said, Jack, who do you want to talk to? And he spells out H.H. Holmes. And the woman to my right says, the serial killer? And I went, well, I played H.H. Holmes twice on television, once with the Blumhouse group with the Elevator show, and then once for a music video. So maybe he's trying to talk to me. I said, hello, Jack. What do you want to tell me? And he spells out book, B-O-O-K. And I said, yeah, I get it. I'm supposed to be writing. I still haven't finished that book. Yes, I get it. I'm supposed to be writing. So we close it out. They go home, and I look up CRJ 9000, and it is in fact a jet propulsion engine. And so I looked up H.H. Holmes book, Jack Parsons, and I came up with a 1941 Rocket to the Morgue by the author Anthony Boucher, whose pen name is H.H. Holmes. Now, in this, it's a closed-door murder mystery, and there's a thinly veiled L. Ron Hubbard and a thinly veiled Jack Parsons. You know this because he's a rocket scientist in Pasadena. And so in this story of this closed-door murder mystery, they're trying to figure out how this could have happened, and they meet L. Ron Hubbard, who says, well, it could be this thing, it could be that thing, it could be, maybe it's just the simplest form. But they all belong to this society of authors in California in the 1940s. It's called the Manana Society because they're futurists. They write for manana, but also because this group of people will come in and they say, I have a great idea for a book. And everyone else will say, oh yeah? When are you going to write it? Manana? You're going to write that manana? How about tomorrow? So it was Jack sort of laughing at me from beyond the grave. Going to write it tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jack Parsons was the president of the Los Angeles Science Fiction Society, who used to meet at his house in Pasadena. And that's how he met L. Ron Hubbard, because L. Ron Hubbard was a famous science fiction author for many years before he started Scientology. And so he came to a Los Angeles Science Fiction Society meeting and then said, I've just come from New York. I need a place to live. And he went, oh, come stay here. And that's how he ended up living there. And in fact, Marjorie Cameron Parsons told me how Scientology started. And it actually was started after one Sunday afternoon, after the Los Angeles Science Fiction Society meeting had ended. There were still some people hanging around her in the kitchen while she was cooking. And it was L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, A. Van Vogt, and Damon Knight sitting around the kitchen table. And they were talking about religion and magic and science. And there was a discussion going on about, well, in the future, religions will just disappear because everyone will understand science. So in our science fiction books, we shouldn't have religion. And then other people said, well, no, it'll just be a science fiction religion. And there was a big argument about if you could have a science fiction religion. So L. Ron Hubbard said, I bet I could create a science fiction religion. And A. Van Vogt said, I bet you can't. So they both put $100 on the table, and Marjorie Cameron put it in a tea can and put it on the mantelpiece. And they said, okay, you've got 1 year to create a science fiction religion. And that's why L. Ron Hubbard invented Scientology. It was to win a $100 bet.
And that's why Rodney's house will be picketed tomorrow.
Again, I'm just telling you what she told me.
We're not allowed to share these stories. We're not allowed to share them.
Okay, I have a question, Rodney, because you are you've played Dungeons and Dragons and such for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, is there like a moment from a campaign that you've played that is like your favorite moment or your funniest moment or something like that you could share with us?
How many hours do we have in this?
Like, I got all
hundreds and hundreds. I mean, if you talk to any role-playing gamer, any D&D player, and say, like, what have you had a good time in the camp? And they will regale you with many events that happened that were absolutely amazing, and they're wonderful characters and all the rest of it. But actually, you were talking about getting, your son killing your character. I'll tell you one of the first role-playing games I ever played was Star Trek RPG, which is a great role-playing game because everybody knows how the world works. Yeah, everyone knows that's a Vulcan sign. Everyone knows what a transporter is or what a Klingon is. And you don't have to explain the background because everyone gets it. So Star Trek's a great beginning kind of role-playing game. And we were playing this campaign for years and years and years. And then one of the characters died heroically rescuing the rest of the team. And the guy who was playing him, he was one of my neighbors. He was coming around to my house every day going, I don't know what to do now. I'm like, I miss him so much. And he was like, and so the next session we did was his funeral. And I had him playing a videotape of his last will, and everyone was sobbing, and it was just like, it was a whole big thing. And it was like being at a real funeral. Everyone was crying, and like, and it was just a magical experience. And that was like, I don't know, that was in 1989. I still remember it,
You couldn't have sent the deceased character to a Genesis planet to be regenerated?
That actually did happen eventually, yes. Way down the line, but
boom.
Yes. Yeah, you nailed it, right. So you truly are a geek. I love that. So it really shows you how invested when you read a great book, a really great book, and you're so invested in the character, and you get to the end of the book and it's like, wow. And then you're thinking, I can't believe I'll never hear about that character again or whatever, or a TV show or whatever. But this time you are that character. It's you. It's part of you. And so think how invested you can get if it's something that you've created and that's going on, for a long, long time. You really get invested in your characters. Yeah, absolutely. I can still give you a whole ream of all the characters I've played. My last D&D character was a Hobbit rogue he only had one arm, and he was a London Cockney Hobbit with one arm. He was called Mostly Armless.
You are so cute, Rodney. The more excited you get, the stronger your accent gets.
All right, now that's so
cute.
Yes, I'm actually Irish. In case you hadn't.
I know it got more and more Irish as we.
I'll be getting more Irish all night now. It's been heavily modified over the years, but yeah.
It's lovely. Okay, somebody did in the chat room asked about Black Phillip. We all have a Black Phillip. Yes, we do.
Mine is in that other chair, and I can't reach him.
Oh.
And I used to have. Wait, I forget what it was said, but yes, you too can have a Black Phillip. They're everywhere.
Oh, it was Lady Silver Willow Sage. I must know if the matching goat stuffies are a part of the movie coven. They are adorable. They come on our adventures with us, or sometimes they come on adventures with other people and pretend to be on adventures with us.
Courtney, how's his backside looking?
I haven't done his butthole magic yet. And it's now I'm gonna have to do armpit magic because somehow there's an armpit.
Send that Black Phillip to Heather to fix.
No, what if he gets lost in the mail?
He's not gonna get lost in the mail.
Won't get lost in the mail.
Okay, let's keep in mind the gift that I got for Richard-Lael 2 years ago that's still sitting on my dining room table. I haven't mailed that.
Meanwhile, I made certain that you found Jesus. Okay,
I found him. There he is.
So he won't get lost in the mail. If Jesus Christ can make it through the mail, I'm sure Black Phillip can make it through the mail too.
I hear more about Black Phillip than I do about Jesus Christ, though.
I just like that you found your own personal Jesus, Courtney.
He's a glow in the dark Jesus.
Very blue.
He's a what?
He looks blue. He looks like a Smurf.
Yeah.
No, he's a glow in the dark.
Oh, okay. All right. Now he looks less blue. On my he looked blue.
He's very pale. And originally, when I found him in Los Angeles. And I was going to send it to another friend in Canada, but it did get lost for like 3 years. But now it's Courtney's. But he every Easter he would do a zombie, a zombie image. So when I found glow in the dark, very blue pale Jesus, who glows green, by the way, when the lights are out.
He's a ghost zombie Jesus, just like from Beetlejuice the musical, which is my favorite. Ghost zombie Jesus.
Mary Jane cannot find a Black Phillip with white horns. What? I got mine at a cult shop in New York, but I think you can get one on Amazon, maybe. Evil Amazon.
Robert Hicks, please heal your Black Phillip soon, Courtney. He lives his best life with his splayed legs. Okay, he's out here doing his business. Just being provocative.
Got some training to do.
He is being provocative and waiting for his butthole magic. So.
And also, aren't you supposed to cut the tag off that says "Don't remove the tag"? I
feel like if I did, maybe that's how this started. Was the tag separated his butt?
Well, maybe you don't rip it. Maybe you trim it off.
Well, it's too late because you can see where it's sewn and it's already in the hole. Don't look at his butthole that close. He's a distinguished gentleman. Get his only goat page.
Speaking of only goats, Miss Courtney, don't you have some quotes?
I
like that.
We keep losing the movie.
You know, I love that transition. Thank you. Yes, I do. There are two scenes that I'm not going to quote because I wanted to quote the entire scene, but I will talk about those. I also want to talk about when I saw this in the movie, for some reason, the quote that stuck with me when I walked out of the theater was in the very beginning, when he was telling the story to try to get like the council to release them or to pardon them or whatever, and he keeps bringing up Jarnathan. And just the name Jarnathan, I was snort laughing. But then finally Jarnathan comes and they're going to enact this big plan where they're going to dive out the window with Jarnathan, who has wings. And so they're struggling and they're doing this. And the councilwoman who's behind the desk just goes, "Oh, Jarnathan." Like, this isn't the first time Jarnathan says this. And it was like 3 minutes into the movie and I was crying laughing because of "Oh, Jarnathan." So that's one of my favorite quotes, because it's just the way that she said it, and that I feel like is a big theme in this movie as far as quotes go. It's not so much what they say, it's their delivery. It's how they say it and what context they say it, which makes them amazing. One of them also that I don't know, this could be the t-shirt one, I just think is inspirational, and we should all take heed of this, but he says, "We must never stop failing, because the minute we do, we failed." And I thought that was pretty cool.
I love that.
When Simon says he's getting mad because they keep telling him to like solve all the problems with magic, like pay him in magic, like pay him off in magic, do all these things in magic, and he says, "How everyone thinks we can solve any problem with magic. There are limits. This isn't some bedtime story. This is the real world." And then one of the scenes, literally I was screaming laughing, was when they were doing the necromancy and they could ask 5 questions, and so the corpse is alive, and he's like, "Are you alive?" "Yes." And then they'd be like, "Was that a question?" And then he would like ask the other guy, and then the corpse would be like, "Yes." And he's like, "Wait, no, did that count as a question?" "Yes." And
Yes.
that's, we're on 3 questions. Like, how many questions is that? 4. Like, and it just went on like that, and they had to like dig up the whole graveyard because he couldn't stop asking questions. That was one of my favorites. And then there was another scene. Hold on.
That was one of my favorite moments of the movie too, I must say.
Yeah.
And then they kind of went back to it at the end of the movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also when the brain eating thing, or not, the things that were attracted to people's intelligence, and then they walked by and he's like, "Well, that was a little hurtful." I loved it. It was just just everything. And I have to I know these are not quotes, but like, just to round off what I was saying earlier, like this was so fun. The quotes are great. There were some great lines in the movie, and the cast was great to look at. And they were all so talented, and it's just so fun. Like, the quotes are just so fun. There's so many of them, and if I could be here all day, I could recite the whole movie, and the whole movie is great. The whole script is great. So yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
Courtney.
All right. I guess moving. Do we do the Mankey mini? I always get this backwards. We do your movie minutes before.
No, we do it after Courtney. We always do it after.
Okay.
Yeah, after Courtney.
Before we vote.
Before we vote on the.
Yeah, it always kind of gives away.
I'm like Space Cadet today. It's
okay. It always like ruins like how I'm gonna vote, because you can.
Okay,
tell.
well then let's vote. Let's vote.
No, it's fine.
We can end it out with the trailer. That works.
Should we vote on if we vote?
Let's vote.
Vote on.
I say vote. One's up, we vote.
One's up, we vote now.
Okay, we vote now. It's unanimous. We vote now.
Now, with this vote, everybody, one's up, one's down for Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
One's very much up.
Yes.
Mine is too high. Can't even see it.
Mine is so high because Zac Efron was great. I mean, Chris.
No.
See, I never know which way to do my wand. Either way, it's up. All right. So one's up, one's up. In our room, we got, Mary Jane's a per, one's down, not even neutral. One's up, one's down. It made me want to play the game. All right. So we've got mostly ones up and not. So now we will not be influenced in our voting by Jason. I see.
These things are always much easier to write when I. These things are always much easier to write when I hate the movie, because then you can just make fun of it. But I love this movie. This movie is really, really great. So here we go. Here's the movie minute. A bard, a barbarian, a paladin, a half elf, a tiefling druid raised in an elf conclave, and perhaps most importantly to the plot of this movie, a con artist and lovable rogue. It's almost a paint-by-numbers listing of the standard characters in a D&D game. But Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is saved from itself by a terrific cast. Chris Evans? No way. Chris Pratt? Ew. Chris Hemsworth? He's okay, and I dig the long hair, but the best Chris is Chris Pine, and he's in this movie. Oh, and there's also the guy from Bridgerton, Roger Jean Page. Is there a more beautiful man in the entire world?
No.
I mean, maybe Chris Pine, but probably not. Page is beautiful. Oh, and do you want fan service? This movie has tons of fan service, most notably the original Ranger, Cavalier, Magician, Thief, Barbarian, and Acrobat. I'm about ready to cry thinking about it. This movie is pretty good, but will never be as good as the cartoon from the early 1980s. That thing is amazing. But back to Honor Among Thieves. This is a fun movie. So much fun. It's got Hugh freaking Grant in it and Michelle Rodriguez, finally freed from starring in just Fast and Furious movies. And yes, this movie is all kinds of dumb, but it's a fun dumb, and that's all you can ask for. I haven't played D&D in years, and this movie had me rolling my dice in my seat. Thumbs up, hurrah, hurrah, huzzah, huzzah.
Yay, huzzah.
That is beautiful. Yay. All right. So we got through another one. And what are we doing next week? I forgot to even ask.
Oh, I forgot. Hold on.
I mean, look, we have it here.
We have it. While we're looking, Rodney, who is your cat?
Crossroads.
That was May. She's just run off now. My little one-eyed black cat.
She's beautiful. She was beautiful.
She's very sweet. Unlike her brother Monty, who is a total asshole. He's my asshole. So okay.
All right. Everybody want to check in? Anybody have anything going on? I'm going to start off because I'm not. Am I flashing lights in front of you guys?
Sometimes you do, but not right now.
I don't see any lights flashing.
Okay. I must have done something. I don't know. I just want to say the first thing I'm doing, anybody who wants to stay up late, I'm doing Coast to Coast tonight. Coast to Coast story. So, midnight to 2 a.m. West Coast, 3 to 5 a.m. East Coast, syndicated everywhere. Or if you belong to the Coast to Coast, then you could watch it or listen, whatever you want. But I got to stay me up late and start at 12. So I'm so thrilled to be with George Norrie again, my third time on his radio. And then I'll let everybody else talk first, and then I'll go back to what I'm doing. Richard-Lael.
I am here in New Orleans. I am the Gentleman Psychic. I only have one TikTok account. I do not ever contact anybody. You can contact me at thegentlemanpsychic.com. I am teaching at University Magicus, Magic U, as it is now rebranded. I have a couple of classes coming up about Crossroads, actually, which is our next film. And so I do all kinds of things, readings. We also start Scared and Alone coming up again, which Courtney will talk a little bit more about.
That's my big news.
Yay. Okay, then Courtney, go.
Okay, so big news, big announcement. Scared and Alone is back. So we are starting, our first episode is Sunday, February 11th, around 9 p.m. As soon as the Super Bowl is over, I'm going to be in HE double hockey sticks and be terrified once again. It's going to be great. We are going to keep the place a secret, so you're going to have to tune in to figure out where we go. It's a good one, and you're going to love it, and I've been there, and it's terrifying. So you haven't seen me be there yet, but I have been there.
So where do people find Scared and Alone?
So you can go to scaredandalone.com, scared and the word and alone.com, or you can find us on all the socials at Scared Alone Live. And then come see me. I have to pee my pants. I need to wear my power panties, the protection panties.
You need power panties for that.
I have them. I have to find them. And then also, that's the most exciting, but also very exciting. Coming up in Salem starting this weekend, we have my tour baby, the anti-Valentine's Day tour, Stories of Love Gone Wrong in Salem. You can get your tickets if you scan that QR code at salemghosttours.com. And I secured fans of the Witches Movie Coven a promo code. So if you are going to be in Salem and you want to take the tour, you can use promo code WMC24. So Witches Movie Coven 24 to get $5 off your ticket.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jason.
We're just weeks away from the start of pagan festival season. It opens with Convocation, which is in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is near Detroit. And I'll be there near the end of February. And then we move to Minnesota, outside of Minneapolis. That's Paganicon, where Heather Greene will also be. Then I'll be in Florida for a few days at Phoenix Festivals. And then Sacred Space, which is outside of Baltimore, Maryland, doing lots of witchcraft rituals and workshops. It's weird to have been really stuck at home for the last 2 months. I'm ready to get back out and talk to all 12 of my adoring fans.
Thank you so much. All right. And our beautiful, wonderful, with a great voice guest this week, Rodney. Tell anybody anything that you have coming up or you want to tell them about your books, etc.
Oh, okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's a new book coming out through Strange Attractor Press, MA2 Press. That's coming out, I think, in May, hopefully. We will see. Sometime this year, it will be out eventually. And that's like a massive, that's everything you ever want to know about the Satanic Panic. And pretty much, it's also hilariously funny. I didn't just want to make a boring academic, like, this happened, this happened. It goes into all the characters, both from the pagan angle of things in the 80s and the 90s, and also the weird Christian lunatics and politicians and, warts and all, everything you ever want to know. Luckily, when we first did the magazine back in the 80s, we had to be really careful what we wrote so we didn't end up libeling people. But now most of them are dead, and you can't libel the dead. So now I can actually say the things I wanted to say all along but couldn't. So that's going to be a really good, it's like 400 or 500. It's a huge, big ass book. So that's going to be really cool. I just finished literally last week mixing my new album. That's coming out at the beginning of March, and it's called Death and Sex.
Ooh,
because everyone's that. And then I'm going
one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Is boobs and butts on there?
So that's coming out at the beginning of March, and actually, literally, this is the first time I've actually told people the title. And then we go on tour with my band, the Cassandra Complex, in March. We're touring around Europe. We're doing 3 shows in the UK, and then we go to Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark, and play a bunch of shows there. And then we go back again in May and play in Germany again, South Germany, Czech Republic, and Austria. So yeah, that takes me through to May, and then hopefully in the fall we're doing Latin America and maybe even the USA.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a busy
do you have, is there a website people can find all this if they don't remember everything that you said?
Rodney Orpheus, just if you type, I'm the only Rodney Orpheus in the world. So if you just type the words Rodney Orpheus into Google, you'll get pages and pages of me talking about all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
All right.
RodneyOrpheus.com or Cassandra Complex. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, go back to me real quick. Yes, University Magicus. I teach on Tuesdays, most weeks. Tuesdays. I'm in a mediumship series right now. I am doing. I am in town for February because we have the Vampire Ball, which everybody is invited to. March, I'm starting off March in Las Vegas, doing a little witchy weekend in Las Vegas. April, I'm going to be in Arizona at the Old Globe Paracon. May, Transylvania, Romania. We are doing a witch and vampire tour, and then it goes on. I just finally, it took me half the day to figure out where I was going to be this year, but now I know for a minute. Anyway, so it is that time. So Patti
Happy
Negri,
in bulk. Happy in
like
bulk,
this-
though.
oh, in bulk. It's in bulk. It's in bulk.
Yeah.
In bulk.
Yeah.
In bulk. Happy in bulk.
Happy in bulk, everyone.
In bulk. And everybody's going, what? As we end the night. Okay. I know we haven't cackled in a while. Is there a better thing we should do for
Nope,
D&D?
cackling is it.
Cackling.
Chicken. All right. 1, 2.